world, but a catalyst for change in a society is usually persona non grata with those who have been the beneficiaries of the system.
Distinguished legal analyst and the justice correspondent for The Nation. He also has an amazing book called Allow Me to Retort, A Black Guy's Guide to the Constitution. Thank you for joining me today on AURN On the Record.
Nice to meet you virtually, Ebony.
I know, right? It is. It's so funny that everybody's always behind the scenes doing a whole bunch of stuff, but it's good to have you with me. What in the constitutional mess is going on, Elie?
That's its constitutional greatness. This is how democracies are supposed to work. I think that yesterday was an impressive day and an important day in the legacy and the history of Joe Biden. It is rare in American life that somebody who has power and has a chance to have additional power gives it up, right? Just straight up, just lays it down and passes it on to the next generation. I mean, you can literally count on your hand the time sitting presidents who've had the opportunity to run for re-election didn't. There are three. George Washington, setting the precedent that the president was not going to be a lifetime position, right? Harry Truman, who could have run for a third term in 52 because serving out the end of FDR's term doesn't count for the purposes of the 22nd Amendment, but he declined to run in 52, and one of his former generals, Dwight D. Eisenhower, eventually won the presidency that year. And LBJ, Lyndon Johnson, who kind of famously was caught up in the Vietnam quagmire and decided that he wouldn't run for his party's renomination. Now, LBJ was a little bit interesting because he kind of thought that he would be called back to service, right? Like he said he wasn't going to run like all the way in March. The convention wasn't until October, and he thought that Democrats would run around with their like headless chickens, and then like LBJ, come back, please, and they didn't say that, and then Democrats got whooped. That's not what we have here with Biden. We have Biden not only stepping down, but stepping down and throwing his full weight behind his VP and potential successor, Kamala Harris. It is grand, it is august, it is statesman-like, and I think the history books will treat Biden very well in this moment for his statesmanship.
It was like a political mic drop in this case. So how do you see this faring for if VP Harris becomes the Democratic nominee for president? How do you see this kind of faring out for her? I mean, behind the scenes, as we saw this moment coming over the past week or two, basically, Democrats were kind of, I say, talking out loud, putting their business out in the streets where people were trying to figure out what was really going to happen. So while some say we were caught off guard, in another way, you couldn't have been because all the chatter was going on at the same time. What does this campaign need to do to re-energize their base, to switch up their messaging?
Oh, well, first of all, based on the first 24 hours, I'd say the base is re-energized, right? Like, I don't know if
$1 million in the pot.
Right? I don't know if you were in the Win with Black Women call last night, but my wife couldn't get in. Like, that's how big.
I got in late in the midnight hour, and I was on like with popcorn. I was like, the roll call was amazing.
So like they're raising money. The gun rights activist, the gun safety activist, David Hogg, he's been raising money for her. And then Act Blue, the kind of small dollar donor foundation. Last I checked, she was up to like $56 million in her first day. So I would say the base, the re-energization of the base has already happened. I think going forward, what we get to have now is a real campaign. Like, the problem with Biden's candidacy over the last few weeks and months has been that he has been an ineffective communicator of his own message. right? Because of the age thing and the, I think, sometimes unfair things that people were saying about his age. Like, the entire conversation was about Biden. How old is he? Is he still mentally with it? And we weren't having a real campaign on the issues, and we weren't having a real campaign about the actual now oldest person to ever run for president, Donald Trump. Right? We weren't having a conversation about his mental acuity and stages of mental decline. We weren't having a conversation about his 34 felony convictions and other criminal activities. And we weren't having a real campaign about the most salient issue in the country going into this election: abortion rights. Right? Donald Trump successfully took away abortion rights for half of Americans by installing 3 forced birth anti-abortion judges on the Supreme Court. This is the first presidential election that we will have since the ruling in Dobbs that overturned Roe v. Wade. And every time you go to a state and you put abortion on the ballot, Democrats win.
Yep.
Every single time since Dobbs, where there has been a Republican candidate that's been on a strict anti-choice, anti-abortion line, every time that you try to put a constitutional amendment into your state constitution, taking away the right to choose, the Republicans have lost. Unlike Joe Biden, Kamala Harris is particularly comfortable talking about the abortion issue. She is comfortable saying the word abortion. She is comfortable putting abortion front and center. And when Democrats post Dobbs have put abortion front and center, they have won. It is a winning issue for Democrats. And I think Harris is going to be exactly the right person to put that front and center. And now we can have a real campaign about those issues. Is it going to be tough? Of course. This country is a racist, misogynist country, right? We know this. This is not breaking information, right? Unlike other advanced democracies, we so far have never elected a woman to be our leader. That's happened almost everywhere else in the world that has an advanced democracy, not here, because we suck. And so we have to understand that we understand that is a hurdle that she is going to have to overcome. She's Black, she's AAPI, she comes from an immigrant family. We understand that is going to be something that the Republicans are going to try to use against her. The next few weeks are going to be real ugly for people who look like you. They're going to say things to our faces that they usually only say at their rallies. You know what I mean? It's going to be one of those. But
I don't know, Elie. They ain't been just standing at their rallies. They've been, I don't even want to people say dog whistle, but they ain't been whistling. They've been yelling. They've been writing. They've been putting it in front of you. They've been tweeting. They've been stalking you. They've been laughing at you. They have moved out of that, and they are marching in your towns. They are telling you to your face, and they wrote it in a book, 920 plus pages.
Right? So like those are all going to be, the Republicans, you know, when you think Republicans have found the bottom, you just haven't thought creatively enough about where the bottom actually is, right?
The Cracker Jack box is a little deeper than what you think.
Right. It's gonna be low. But I think that, you know, put like this, you know who knows that? Kamala Harris. Like, she's not naive about the situation that she's walking into. It is going to be a tough campaign. People are going to say awful things about her, but she's got the record. She's got the record of accomplishments from the Biden-Harris administration that she can run on. She's got issues that she cares about, that Americans care about, that she can run on. She's a charismatic woman, as far as, you know, when I've had the opportunity to meet her. She is charismatic. She is interesting. She is smart. And that all kind of drips off of her. And I think that will be her, you know, that will be her shield as we go into, you know, a pretty ugly period in American politics. I think Harris is very well positioned to come out on top on the other side.
Well, how do you think that I don't want to say should react, but probably will react? I mean, whether they're going to do this roll call vote or what could happen if we see this at an open convention? I mean, that...
So, okay, I have a couple. The media is, people in my industry, in our industry, they are salivating for an open convention.
They are. They're like, yeah.
Right? Because that'll just make the ratings go boom, right? Like, they want drama. They want Democrats in disarray. They want Joe Manchin in the rafters being like, what about me?
When I saw that, I was like, sit down, sir.
There is a process.
Yeah.
If you want to put your name in contention for the Democratic nomination at the upcoming convention in Milwaukee, in Chicago, you need, I think I heard Donna Brazil say, you need 300 signatures from delegates.
You do.
Go get them. Go get your signatures and let's do this. Like, if you want to run it, because, you know, all the next available white guy options that apparently some in the party and some liberal white donors have wanted, all of them have fallen in line and endorse Kamala Harris, right? Gavin Newsom endorses Harris. Gretchen Whitmer endorses Harris. Pete Buttigieg endorses Harris. Yep. You got somebody who hasn't endorsed Harris and they want to run for them. You know, Dean Phillips wants to try again, get his signatures, and let's go, right? Let's rock that out. Because, like, the party is united, but she's not being, they're united because they think that she can win. She's not being coronated. There's a process. Go get your signatures and bring your candidacy to the convention floor, and let's see what happens. So I am not worried about I think Biden gets a lot of credit for this. I am not worried about an open convention or party infighting and whatever. And part of the reason why I'm not worried about that is that Biden put his foot down on this, right? Biden said, like, look, Biden's critics are the ones who wanted to skip over Biden and Harris, right? Biden was like, nah.
AOC told us, we knew it already, but she came out and said, the same people you think this is just about Biden. It's about the entire ticket.
They tried it, right? They wanted to try it, and Biden said, no, that's what we're not going to do. What we're not going to do is have chaos. So if you've got a candidate who wants to run against Harris, put their name into the hat on the convention floor, and let's see what happens. But other than that, Harris is going to be the nominee, and I don't actually think it's going to be chaos. I don't think it's going to be what the media wants. I don't think it's going to be a circus. They're not going to get the show. They're going to get a unified party, which is back to talking about what Democrats want to talk about, which is their vision of the future and how different that is from the fascist authoritarian takeover that is laid out in the 900-page document that you have read, that I have read, that Michael Harriot has read, that Kamala Harris has read, Project 2025. We've read that document. The Republicans have put themselves on record for the kind of fascist takeover they want. I think at the Democratic Convention in August, you're going to hear the alternative vision to Project 2025, and I think that's a winning vision. It's going to be a tough election. It's going to be a close election, but I think that is a winning vision that we're going to hear in Chicago in a couple of weeks.
Are you going to be at the DNC?
No, they don't take me out to parties. They don't.
Come hang with me, Elie. Come hang with me. Hang with me. You know, I wanted to ask about, you're talking about who she needs to woo and who needs to come back. We've heard, I don't even like to get into a whole bunch of conversations about polling because a lot of times I will go to a lot of Black pollsters or outlets that people don't always quote, like Black Labs Future, who say something very different from a lot of the mainstream polls that we see. But in that conversation about polls, what do you think she can do when it comes to Black men or even undecided voters and younger voters? What appeal does she need to make?
So first of all, let's remember that polls are indicative, not predictive. Right?
Yeah.
Polls are a snapshot in time of how people felt, not how they're gonna feel in the future. Harris look, VP is a hard job. VP is a hard job. You don't get out there on your own steam. You don't always get to get out there and make your own case. You're tied to the administration's
platform. They gave her immigration.
Right. You're tied to the to the administration's case. Like it's a tough job, right? And so right now, Harris has been introduced as Biden's number 2. The reintroduction of Harris as the nominee, as the top of the ticket, is gonna. So, like, basically, it's a long way of saying I don't really care about any polls that have been done up till now. Like the next poll, I'll put a little bit more stock into because that will give a snapshot of where Harris is as she is making her reintroduction to the American people. I think that the next poll is going to be a whole lot more worthy than the last poll. That's just as a starting thing. The argument is always that there are going to, look, Black and brown voters are the base of the Democratic Party. I know white liberals don't always like to believe that, but it's true.
Why they don't?
Like, welcome to the world you've been living in this entire time. There is always the argument that there are going to be some Black male voters who reject Harris because of misogyny. I mean, that misogyny is in every community. That includes ours. because she has a Caucasian husband, right? There's an argument that even some black women will reject Harris because she has a Caucasian husband. What I say to that is bull. Like there are always about 12% of black men who will vote for a Republican, right? Herman Cain, God rest his soul, always exists. Tim Scott, God rest his fiance's soul, always exists, right? Like that guy is always there.
Wait, Elie, you can't skip over that. Okay, go ahead. I needed a moment.
You know, peace out to Tim Scott's fiance. Great performance there. We love you. That guy always exists. Byron Donalds always exists, right? And the Tim Scotts and the Byron Donalds and the Herman Cains, they were going to vote for Trump no matter who the Democrats ran. They voted for Trump last time. They voted for Trump the time before that. When Barack Obama ran, those are the black folks who were voting for Mitt Romney and John McCain. The 12 or so percent of them are always there. Now, their particular argument for voting Republican changes because of the election, right? First, you know, against McCain, I remember people saying Barack Obama wasn't black enough because he was Hawaiian. Like, you know, like we had that going on, right? During Trump Clinton, Hillary Clinton, a super predator. Like the 12% of black men who are going to vote for Republican are always going to find some excuse for why they're voting for Republican. And those 12% will be there again this time. They will be just the same and just as loud. The question is whether or not the media is going, and this is where I'm saying like there's perception versus reality.
Yeah.
What the media does is that they go find these 12% every 4 years.
The messaging coming from media.
Right. And so it's like if you interview 4 black men and 2 of them are in the 12% and they're going to vote for Republican and 2 of them are in the 88% and they're going to vote for Harris, and you put all 4 of them in your article, well, guess what? It looks like it's an even split. It looks like, no, it's the same. It's 12%. What you should do is interview 10 black men, find the 9 of them that are voting for Harris and the 1 that's voting for Trump, and then have your article be based on that, because that's statistically what's actually going to happen. That's statistically what actually always happens. But the media doesn't present it like that, so there's a lot of scare and fear. And that's one of the last things I want to say, especially to your audience, because I've already, in the first 24 hours, I've already heard this a lot. Be not afraid. Be not afraid. Like, the part of the game is to make us afraid of ourselves.
Come on.
Right? To make us afraid of our own shadow. Right? Like, I'm just not here for arguments that are like, well, I'm not racist, but the racists are racist, so we should listen to the racists. No, we shouldn't listen to them. Just because they're racist, just because they're misogynist, just because we know that racism and misogyny is going to lead them towards the racist, misogynist, white supremacist candidate that is Donald Trump, doesn't mean that we have to agree, and doesn't mean that we have to be afraid of doing something different.
Yeah.
I am not afraid to run with Harris. I'm not afraid to try to win an election against a 34 count convicted, thrice
felon who's got to get special permission to even vote because he's a felon in the state of Florida, but they're not letting anybody else. I'm
not afraid of taking him on with a black AAPI first woman potential president. I'm not afraid of that. Will be hard. Yes, it will be hard in a different way than if we were running kind of like some white guy out of central casting, probably. But Harris has everything that we need, both in terms of her intellect, her background, her record, and the issues that she cares about. She has everything that we need to beat this guy, and I think she can.
I love it. Elie, is your next article going to be like, be ye not afraid? Is that, I don't know.
I'm literally texting with my editor as soon as I get off.
I'm like, be ye not afraid. I'm feeling that. But lastly, before you go, because sometimes we talk about so many things, but a lot of kitchen table issues get lost. What is really happening right now? And you've written some amazing pieces on the court. Where do you also, while we're looking at this and debating and waiting, what do people need to be focused on and watching this happening while they're sleeping?
Yeah, so the Supreme Court is the most powerful branch of government. They've proven that time and time again, because if you pass a law through the Congress that we all elect, the Supreme Court can essentially veto that law. If you get a president that signs an executive order, the Supreme Court can overturn that executive order, and they do it all the time. The Supreme Court has been controlled by Republicans for my entire life. Literally, the last time there was a Democratic appointed majority on the Supreme Court was 1969. All right. And Harris is particularly focused on this issue. Like, my real job is court reformer. My real job is trying to get people to understand what the third branch of government actually does to their lives, right? And I don't have to convince Harris about that. She already knows. She's already there. Joe Biden was one of the most reluctant people to actually take reform to the Supreme Court. Harris is not. She's going to come out. I would be surprised if she hasn't or doesn't come out with an ethics bill for the Supreme Court before the end of this campaign. Right? Because she understands the corruption that is inherent in the Clarence Thomases and Sam Alitos and Neil Gorsuch. And she will have a bill that she'll ask Congress to pass before the end of this campaign on Supreme Court ethics reform, at least, to say nothing of some of the other big ticket reform items that, while she is not, she is not a fan of court packing in its current form, as I am, but put like this, I also know that court reformers and people who take the Supreme Court seriously will have a seat at Harris's table in a way that they didn't have a seat at Biden's table. So as a court reformer, even though I would say that Harris isn't nearly as, let's say, radical or crazy as I am on this issue, I know she'll listen. I know she listens because she understands how important the court is.
Absolutely. Elie Mystal, Justice Correspondent for The Nation. Sir, let me tell you something. You are always welcome on this platform. I gotta have you back.
Well, thank you so much. Like I said, it was nice finally meeting you.